One. Welcome back. You're listening to Backward Point. This is a cricket podcast hosted by Pakistani Canadian brothers. I myself am your co-host Bashar, and with me is my brother and co-host.
Nazar Sayed.
Today is going to be one of those legacy episodes, the first legacy episodes of a series that we hopefully look to build over time. And by legacy episode, we basically mean an episode that you can in the future go back and listen to. That's going to be timeless and hopefully sort of a case study, a research analysis of a specific topic that we're looking to talk about. So the topic of today's episode is Pakistan's search for the next fast bowling all-rounder.
Yes.
Initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts is, firstly, I'm glad that we're doing this. Like, I wanted to do a legacy episode for a while. Current affairs in cricket, they're always moving around, and it's always fun to talk about them. But at the end of the day, we also want to have one of those episodes where, like, we're proud of that we can, like, sort of have a playlist of on our channel, and we can go and look back at and be like, hey, look, that one's still relevant. So, I'm glad we're finally sitting down to do this. When you pitched this idea for me to do this episode firstly, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, for our first legacy episode, should we talk about this? There was other conversations that we pulled up where, there's a whole series you want to do on what ifs, what if the Misbah Haq catch was dropped, or what if the shot went over the fine leg on the 2007 T20 World Cup final? What if Pakistan had won that 1999 World Cup, etc.
What if Amr and Asif never got caught?
Exactly. Like, those were really good and like amazing ideas to riff off of. There's so many ways that those podcasts could have gone. But once you pitched it to me and we had a conversation, and that Google Doc that you sent through, which actually, I think eventually one of these days we'll start sharing these up, maybe to our Patreon followers. If you guys want to subscribe there, we can do that. But very detailed, very proper Google Doc, which convinced me that this should be the first episode. And now after looking at the stats, I'm a little bit ashamed that this is the first one, but definitely interested in where this conversation goes.
Yeah, I felt like this episode was maybe not the need of the hour, but something that needs to be discussed and addressed. Because we've seen sort of a gaping hole in Pakistan's cricket team since we saw Abdul Razzaq retire. In the past, we've seen some really amazing all-rounders for Pakistan: Imran Khan, Wasim Akram, Azhar Mahmood. And ever since Razzaq retired, we just haven't seen an all-rounder step up to the plate as one should have. We've seen, glimpses of performances, a one-match brilliance, a man-of-the-match performance here, a man-of-the-match performance there, but nothing consistent to sort of say that we have found our next Razzaq. That's been sort of the calling every time we find a new all-rounder to, like, have we found the next Razzaq or not?
It's wild to think about the 1999 or the late 90s cricket team where we had how many all-rounders? We had Azhar Mahmood, we had Abdul Razzaq, we had Shahid Afridi, we had Shoaib Malik, we had Wasim Akram. That's 5 all-rounders.
Ijaz Ahmed, Amr Sohail could bowl.
Sure, why not? That was a team that was well-rounded. The captain had many options to go. And if somebody was having a bad day, you could easily switch that bowler out and have somebody else bowl in their stead. And then just a few weeks ago was the anniversary of the famous Abdul Razzaq game where he scored 109 not out against South Africa in Dubai. We watched that game live. Yeah. It was it's one of my core memories in cricket, watching that game live. We were so used to 140 for 5 and getting all out under 200 that, someone stepping up like Abdul Razzaq, he's like, no, I'm going to finish this.
Yeah.
Just a quick aside on that. The second last ball of that innings where he almost nicked it. Do you think it was an out?
Honestly, I felt like it was. The umpire was Aleem Dar. You can't really say if that was an honest thing. I'm not sure there were reviews back then.
No reviews back then. No. Not for that series.
But it was really close. Like, it felt like maybe it hit the ground. Maybe there was 2 sounds. Maybe it was the clicking of the bat. You never really know. So in that sense, I think Aleem Dar gave the benefit of doubt to Abdul Razzaq, as he should have as a Pakistani and as an umpire.
Yeah, I mean, benefit of doubt definitely goes towards the batsman there. And I was watching that again. I was like, I totally forgot that this almost happened. Yeah. Just watching those highlights, feeling the adrenaline pump throughout the 9-10 minute highlights is just amazing. And then so, like, that's the legacy that was sort of not tainted, but it should have been carried on. When Abdul Razzaq and Shahid Afridi and all these lads retired, we did have a new crop of people coming up, trying to replace them. Number one, Hamad Azam, right when Razak retires, and
Yeah.
then Hamad Azam steps in, and it just didn't really go anywhere. Like the list that you showed me, and we'll talk about it in detail as well. None of those names really speak all arounder to me,
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
right?
it's
None
like
of them.
they're a
clutch.
master of one format of the batting, but not bowling. Or if it's bowling, it's not batting. But if we actually like, get into it, I wanted to first address like why it's so important for a team to have a fast bowling all-rounder. I feel like all-rounders are very, very important. They add balance to a team. They add depth in terms of how deep your batting order is, how many bowling options you can have. And in the past, we've seen some really great all-rounders play the game. And by having them in the team, they've made great teams in the past.
Yeah, they've sort of well-rounded the teams up. They've sort of whatever edges the team had, those were curved over because this guy could ball, could bat. If you need a sixth bowler, seventh bowler,
Yeah.
you can. The captain always had options.
Yeah, they could be a utility player. And if you look at the history of cricket in the past, we've seen one of the greatest all-rounders from West Indies, Gary Sobers. The ICC Cricketer Trophy of the Year is named after him. He has a staggering average of 57 in batting and 34 in bowling, which is absolutely insane just individually for batting and bowling, let alone combining those two into one player. Richard Hadley, Kapil Dev, Jack Callis, Shane Watson. There was this whole era of all-rounders where Imran Khan was there as well, Kapil Dev was there, Richard Hadley was there, and they were all competing to be the best in the world. And we've seen in the past Ian Botham was there. Yeah, I missed his name. Thank you for calling that out.
He's one of the greatest all-rounders of English cricket, bro. Come on.
Absolutely. Beefy, I think is in the
Yeah,
game,
and
right?
then like that very famous or infamous Imran Khan versus Botham at the court thing.
They had the lawsuit.
Imagine if they had like internet back then.
Was that about ball tempering?
I feel like it was about ball tempering, or it was about that or fixing. Was it? I don't remember exactly, but I remember like it was a big thing, and even Imran Khan mentioned it in his book as well, so it quite affected him.
Yeah, I mean, then Jack Callis was there for South Africa, one of the greatest of all time. Averages 55 in batting, 32 in bowling. Really, probably one of the GOATs all-rounder when you speak of all-rounders.
Yeah.
And then we saw Shane Watson come from Australia, and not that saying that Australia won a lot of trophies, and I'm not saying it's because of him, but I'm saying that because he was there, it added a different flavor to the team. And
Yeah, for sure.
They went on to win the 2006 Champions Trophy. He was in the team, the 07 World Cup for ODIs, the 09 Champions Trophy, and then the 2015 ODI World Cup. And Shane Watson was part of all those teams.
Great run by him, by the way.
Incredible. Yeah, he's a bowler who can ball 135, 140, swing it up front. He can open the batsman, a destructive player all around.
Was he in the 2012 T20 World Cup squad?
Yeah,
because Australia won that too, right?
has Australia? No,
I don't know.
I don't think they've won a
Okay.
T20 World Cup yet.
Okay.
They
Who won
lost. They
2012?
lost to England in 2010 in the finals after beating Pakistan in West Indies. The famous Matthew Hussey.
Oh,
against
okay,
Ajmal.
okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, I'm maybe confusing it, but yeah, definitely. Shane Watson was an asset for the Australian team in all formats. Actually, he played the IPL till like very recently as well.
Yeah,
He was really into league cricket as well. Definitely someone who any team he was in, he was an asset. And then Pakistan, speaking from Pakistan's point of view, we never really found that person.
yeah.
I remember Abdul Razzaq used to open for Pakistan at one point.
Yeah,
The bowling.
There
With
was a
Wasim and
period
Waqar
in the
in the team.
90s or late 90s and early 2000s where he batted one down.
Yeah.
And we did try to utilize and groom him in a different way, where sometimes he was even opening our bowling attack.
I remember that.
And he was a guy who could bowl 140, smack the ball really hard,
Very natural in
a
swing.
gun player,
Oh, yeah.
player all around. And so
Afridi called him his soldier.
his soldier,
He was like, this guy's my soldier.
yeah, an absolute fighter in every way, and to have that longevity in your career because he played from 96 till 2013. I think greatness is judged by longevity and how long you can keep doing it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, not to turn this into like Abdul Razzaq Stan episode, but him coming into the 2009 T20 World Cup because he wasn't in the early games that was the morale booster
Yeah.
for Pakistan.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you remember that completely changed the vibe of the dressing room. That completely changed the vibe of the game that they were playing. I think he came in the New Zealand game,
Yeah.
right? And it was just insane because before that we're having a bit of a few hiccups, and then as soon as this man steps in, it would just immediately you have forwards locked in. You have your number 8 batsman locked in. Nothing to worry about there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, if you look at world cricket right now, in the current era, I think every team right now has their set bowling all under, fast bowling all under in place. Starting off with, the greatest, I think, in the current era, which is Ben Stokes.
Oh yeah,
2016
Sir
T20
Ben
World
Stokes.
Cup finalist, 2019 World Cup winner. Can never forget his
Ashes
incredible
run.
contributions. The Headingley Test, one of the greatest matches, innings of all time. And if you watch the Test documentary on Amazon Prime, you'll get a proper behind the scenes of what it felt like to be in the dressing room and in the ground, in the stadium. A real great moment for English cricket.
Oh yeah, and cricket in general as
yeah.
well. Like Ben Stokes is one of those players that, like Jacques Kallis and others greats that we mentioned, is going to go down in history as one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah.
In all rounders, and what he's doing in Test cricket right now with Brendan McCullum is
As well.
yeah, it's insane. It doesn't work without him, and that's the sort of confidence that he has. And I feel like in Pakistan, in ODIs especially, and you can feel that in T20s as well. Pakistan is really lacking that player
Yeah.
because India has Pandya. Everybody has someone
Yeah.
who is filling that gap, and Pakistan keeps trying out these new players, and we don't really get to find it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, Hardik Pandya from India, he sort of adds a different flavor to the team because he's somebody who can, if wants, he can ball his all 4 overs quota.
Yeah,
He can bat number 5, number 6. He's an insane power hitter, very lanky guy, but he hits the ball out of the park, so effortless, and someone who's over the years learned how to handle pressure so well. I'm looking back at the 2022 Asia Cup game against Pakistan, the first one, and in the group stage where he smacked Nawaz in the last over. The confidence in his approach for batting, I've hardly ever seen that in all-rounders in the past from India. So
those Asia Cup games against Pakistan and India were amazing, man.
they were really
High octane.
something. Yeah.
I just think it's a shame that we have to sort of result into making these makeup series for Pakistan and India so that they can play together. Because otherwise, this just would win a blockbuster series. We're trying to like sort of forge these 3-game stunts so that we can have Pakistan and India play as many matches as possible. I think it's stupid. Just take away the acting and the theatrics and just play a series, man. Like, it's just annoying at this point being Pakistani fans. I just took this in a stat. I think Mazhar talked about how Virat Kohli will go down as the greatest cricketer of all time, but he's never played in Pakistan on Pakistani soil.
He has played in Pakistan, just to correct you. He hasn't played any international match in Pakistan, but he has had an under 19 tour into Pakistan, and he's played games in Faisalabad. I think he's played a few games in Pakistan.
I mean,
but not for India
Exactly.
internationally.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like, same thing with Babar. Babar might potentially never play in India, and the reason that Babar has ever had a career was Amir was caught in spot fixing, and B, he took a fifer in India.
One of the biggest games of the last decade.
That's it. That's his record we had to endure him for 20 or 15 years in our squad because of that. So like, these are the tournaments, these are the sort of the matches, the series that make or break players. I remember when Asif showed up in the 2005-2006 series in Pakistan against India, like, that highlight reel is embedded into my mind. Right, so it's very important for these countries to keep playing. But you spoke of Hardik Pandya. I do hope that Hardik Pandya has the chance to play in front of Pakistani crowds, maybe it this year or in the next 5 years. He's a young player, because I think he would be, especially in Pakistani soil, which is a little bit different from Indian pitches. It would be really fun to see him smack some balls around, and just that competition would be nice. Hopefully by then we have our fast bowling all-rounder locked in, because otherwise it's going to be a beating.
Yeah, I mean, and then just to keep naming some of the all-rounders in world cricket right now. So Australia has Cameron Green, he's supposedly the next Callis of cricket.
Sure.
The way his first class averages are placed. They also have Marcus Stoinis. New Zealand has Jimmy Neesham. England has Chris Wokes as well. West Indies has Jason Holder. Sri Lanka has their captain Dasu Chanaka. So every team sort of has one all-rounder that they've
What about Bangladesh?
groomed. I don't know of a fast bowling all-rounder they have. They have Shakib, who's a spinning all-rounder.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mustafa Murtaza was sort of a
he sort of
hybrid.
was there. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a reliable batsman.
He could
wouldn't
knock
have
it
him
in- knock
back
it
in my
around.
life, but so
Yeah.
but he did improve his batting over the years.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then if we go towards like a history of Pakistan's great all-rounders, starting off, the inception point is Imran Khan, somebody who came into the national squad as a medium pace bowler to get dropped after the first test, go back, work on its action, and the first player in history, I think, to transform himself from a medium pace bowler to an express pace bowler, and at the same time also improve his batting. And he finishes his test career with 362 test wickets at an average of 22. At the same time, he has 3,807 runs at an average of 37 with 6 centuries. And to top that, his white ball record, 182 wickets in ODIs at an average of 26 and 3,709 runs at an average of 33. So
That's amazing.
his test stats, like we are talking about for Gary Sobers, as a bowler, he could fit into any team, but add on to his batting abilities, he's a player that you cannot make an all-time Pakistan Test match 11 without Imran Khan there.
I have a question. Is Imran Khan the greatest athlete Pakistan has ever produced?
I'm not sure about that. I think I would want to put like Waqar Yunus or Wasim Akram just because of maybe they were a bit more skillful.
Okay, but you're missing the point. I'm not talking about more skillful. I'm talking about greatest athletes of all time. The reason that Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete of all time is because he's won 6 rings. But apart from that, he's Michael Jordan. He's still relevant. He's retired in 2003. 20 years later, he's still relevant. Imran Khan, arguably one of the most successful players of all time. Like, this should be a separate podcast. We should definitely talk about this because I want to dive deep into this. But why isn't Imran Khan in the likes of the Muhammad Ali's, the Tiger Woods, the Roger Federers, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants? Why not? He has done something that none of these have done. He's philanthropic. I hate that word, by the way. I can never pronounce it. Philanthropic. He opened 2 cancer hospitals. He's a brand. If Pakistan and the subcontinent had that brand mindset, I don't want to sound like Shoaib Akhtar, but if he had that brand, we had that brand mindset, he would have deals with Nike, he would have deals with Adidas, he would have deals with Gray Nichols, whatever, you name it, right? He would be like the IK brand. Some would argue PTI is a brand. Like, they sell a lot of merch, man. And like, my point is, like, and then at the same time, he became prime minister of a democratic nuclear state. That's huge. With the stats that you just gave me, the only ODI World Cup win, which is also itself very mythical because the way they won it, and it's sort of the more the years go by, the more it becomes like this fairy tale thing. With that included, with all that stuff, marrying into British high society royalty, it just seems like it's a no-brainer, but nobody ever talks about it.
I think it's because of his political ambitions and his political career that has maybe tainted his legacy as a cricketer. I once heard somebody say, like, if you want to be popular in Pakistan, you can either play cricket for Pakistan or you can be a philanthrope. And if you do both of these things, you're named as Imran Khan.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very powerful, but at the same time, yeah, I think his political career has tainted his legacy in terms of his cricketing abilities, and he's also distanced himself from the game. So he doesn't watch much, he doesn't commentate, he doesn't have much opinions. He only watches World Cups. So he seems like he's become a seasonal fan.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Who sort of crops up when the World Cups come around, and then he tweets, "Oh, congrats, Babar Azam."
I don't think he does that.
He does that. He still does that.
I mean, he doesn't do that. His PR team does that.
Yeah. Maybe it's
I
important.
think he's opened and I still believe this man still has a BlackBerry. I don't think he like opens up the iPhone app and is tweeting at Elon Musk. But it would have been a baller move if Imran Khan was like, like how Michael Jordan owns like an NBA team. If Imran Khan was like, by the way, I'm gonna have share in like the Lahore Qalandars. I'm gonna have like a 10% share. That would have been a baller move.
He could have the team called like Lahore Tigers. He's from Miawali. He could be like Miawali Tigers.
Yeah.
Miawali Corner Tigers.
Bro, that would have been that's a baller move. I would have rated that. But yeah, I mean, definitely we should do a podcast about that because I want to talk about all the legends in the sport I'm not talking about cricket. I'm talking about sports and how and why Imran Khan should or shouldn't be in that conversation. But yeah, definitely one of the greatest all-rounders that Pakistan has produced. That is the benchmark. That is like what we're trying to aim at. A lot of people have gotten close. I feel like if the 1999 World Cup was won, Abdul Razzaq would definitely be in that conversation. Azhar Mahmood might be in that conversation. Wasim Akram would actually have been solidified as one of the greatest all-rounders.
That was actually my next point because Wasim Akram's played cricket the first, I would say, 10 years, 7, 8 years under the wing of Imran Khan. And he evolved as a batsman. He improved his batting abilities by a great degree. He scored his first Test 100 against Australia in 1990, and I feel like he never looked back as a batsman since then. And he has scored one of the most iconic cameos in the history of Pakistan white ball cricket. He scored 33 off 18 in the World Cup final, which helped propel Pakistan's score to 249.
Yes.
And then, his bowling abilities, I don't need to mention how great of a bowler he was, but just from a batting point of view, he also has the highest test score of 257 against Zimbabwe and Pakistan, which involved him scoring 12 sixes. His test score, by the way, fun fact, is higher than Sachin's test score, which is 248, not out. So I'm not saying he's a better batsman than Sachin, but I'm just saying he has a bigger.
That's wild that Sachin never scored a three-digit. Sorry, that's wild that Sachin never scored a triple century.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me.
Yep, absolutely. I think he did score a lot of big runs. Like I think he has a lot of double hundreds, but yeah, no triple centuries to show for.
I don't think he needs it, but it would just been nice to have that. Like the high score would have been a different number. I think 248. You said
248.
That's respectable.
Yeah,
for one of the greats for sure.
Yeah, I was just. I think Virender Sehwag has a couple triple hundreds.
Yeah,
and
he does.
The first one he scored against Pakistan in Multan. I was just hearing a podcast where he was talking about that innings, and he said when he was on 295, he was batting with Sachin, and Sachin Mushtaq was bowling, and Virender Sehwag goes to Sachin, and he says that I think I'm gonna hit a 6 and go to my 300. And Sachin's like, "Yo, are you insane? You want to be the first Indian ever to score a triple hundred, and don't throw that opportunity away by taking a big risk." And then Sehwag being Sehwag, didn't listen to Sachin, hits Sachin for a 6, goes to his first triple century, and he's often said that he likes to go to these milestones like a 50, a 100, a 150, a 200 with scoring boundaries or sixes, and that just takes another level of overcoming your fear.
That's cold-blooded, man. Like Sehwag was a great. He was also a good all-rounder for India. Now to think about it, come on, man. He has how many Test wickets does he have?
Not many, but
is he over 50?
Just because I heard the podcast recently, he mentioned he's taken some big wickets of Ricky Ponting, maybe Brian Lara, Intamam. So yeah, maybe he's like
Michael Vaughan's gotten Sachin out. I just saw that video today.
Yeah,
is Michael Vaughan one of the greatest?
I don't know. Let's not get into that. But yeah, then Wasim Akram eventually went on to finish his ODI career with 3,717 runs and an average of 16 and a strike rate of 88. The strike rate is important because he eventually became one of those pinch hitters toward the end of the innings. And if you look back at the cricket that was played in the 90s and 2000s, the full mindset was, play conservatively up until the 30th, 35th over, and then go ham in the last 15 when you have the likes of Afridi, Razzaq, Wasim Akram, Azhar Mahmood to excel and propel your score to a respectable one.
I actually saw a really good thread about that mindset and how like people sort of blame Pakistan for batting first in the 99 World Cup. Did you see that thread on Twitter?
Yeah.
I kind of, now that I see that, like now that I read that, I kind of agree with that. Right, I'm missing the name right now. I apologize, but it was a great thread. We might link it in the description. And he was talking about how batting first on that track was the right move, and people keep blaming Wasim Akram for spot fixing. I mean,
fixing the toss.
Yeah, but that wasn't the case. Like he genuinely was a good, and like if the cameos had gone right and we had scored 200, 220. Different ball game altogether.
as of Kara, I would say. I just finished reading Wasim Akram's book, and he talked about that toss, that match, in particular, just because it again goes back and taints his legacy as being a fixer, as per se.
Nobody talks about that anymore.
And he mentions that.
Did he talk about that? Did he say like people accused him?
He talked about that, openly talked about that, and he also mentioned there's nothing there's no concrete evidence that was ever found. He was never, criminally charged with anything that was found. It was all hearsay. He said that he saw me doing that, but nobody's ever come up and given testimony
Yeah.
for anything. So, talking about that '99 World Cup final, he mentioned that it was not his decision to bat first. It was a team decision that was discussed before the toss, and after he had the concurrence from the team, that's when he went on to bat first. And again, we were talking about this last podcast. Pakistanis have sort of a problem with accepting defeat when it comes to these big matches.
Yeah.
Even if you go further back from the '99 World Cup to the '96 World Cup quarterfinal, again, it was discussed. Wasim Akram backed out last minute, fixed the game. We lost. '99 World Cup final, Wasim Akram, he won the toss, batted first. We lost the match. 2011, Misbah fixed the match. I don't know.
Afridi fixed the match. I heard that too. Like Afridi wanted to play Shoaib Akhtar, but the management was like, "No, we can't do that."
Yeah. So I mean, we just have a history of not being able to accept our defeats.
Yes.
And take them for what they are, and sort of analyze our mistakes and hopefully
Learn from it.
Yeah, learn from it. Come back.
Yeah, we
better.
don't really do that. But you know what? Again, we talked about this as well. It's so refreshing to see that Pakistan unfortunately lost 2 straight tournament finals, but none of that came up. Like nobody's accusing Babar of like taking a big paycheck home, or any of the guys. So that's good to see. But again, I was just talking about how like that mindset of the '90s, that was very prevalent because of that all-rounder bowling attack that we had, all-rounder batting attack that we had, also all-rounder bowling attack that we had. We relied on these pinch hitters to come in, and all of them were literally all-rounders. Afridi, even Malik was playing down at some point.
Yeah.
Azhar Mahmood, Razzaq, Wasim Akram, like these were 4 all-rounders that you knew could smack the ball, and then they were handy in the field as well.
Yeah, we'll do a separate episode on just talking about how great the late '90s team of Pakistan was. If you make an all-time 11 team for Pakistan on ODIs, at least 6 to 7 players on that team have played together. So,
and we were dominant, man.
Yeah.
Like I watched some of these the Cricket Australia posts these like really old vintage games every now and then, and just watching like Abdul Razzaq striking Glenn McGrath for 5-4s or 4-4s and then
5-4s.
Insane. Like you never see that. You see the frustration in Glenn McGrath's face and that over. He's like, who is this kid who is like literally punching me all over the ground? It was MCG as well. That's a big ground. You have all these little moments from that team and just from that era. I just I miss it, man.
Yeah.
I'm being very nostalgic about it.
I mean, I'll bring some more nostalgia for you, because if you talk about again the late '90s, we saw 2 all-rounders come up from Pakistan, Azhar Mahmood and Abdul Razzaq. They debuted like a few games apart. Azhar Mahmood finished his career with 21 tests, 143 ODIs. He scored 100 on debut, one of the first players to ever score 100 on debut from Pakistan.
Wild.
He finished his international career with 2,421 runs at an average of 21. And alongside that, he had 162 wickets at an average of 38. So I wouldn't say he was the greatest all-rounder from Pakistan, but he had respectable...
He had a weird slingy action. I remember that it felt like he was dancing down the pitch.
Yeah. So, I mean, he doesn't have the greatest stats to back up his performance, but I think he's sort of become another myth of when you look back at the great times where we were like, oh, we had Azhar Mahmood, we had Razzaq. Yes, they were both really great, but Razzaq edged Azhar Mahmood in every aspect. That shows with the longevity that Razzaq played with. And Azhar Mahmood eventually went back to play county for Surrey and got his nationalship from Britain. Went to play the IPL as well.
That guy had a different plan, and I respect it. As a foreign Pakistani living in Canada, I respect that plan, bro. He was like, I don't think I want to pursue this anymore.
Yep. And then just so shortly after, as I remember, we had Razzaq, the Abdul Razzaq, come in, who we're still looking to find a replacement for.
Do you want to talk about where we went with the replacements?
Yeah, I mean, but I just wanted to first talk about like the legacy of how Razzaq was someone who could bowl 145. He's had the record of batting at every single batting position from opener to number 11.
I think Malik has that too.
Malik has that as well. So yeah, that just shows how diverse those players were, and you could use them sort of at any moment. If you're low on scoring runs, you can send Razzaq to help pinch hit. He was amazing always in the death overs. And then you mentioned how great he was in the 2009 T20 World Cup campaign. In the final, he took 3 wickets for 20 runs. He took the wickets of Jayasuriya, the big prize wicket of Jayasuriya and Jayawardene, which I just feel like knocked Sri Lanka in the back, and they were never really able to score a respectable total that was on a batting paradise with that pitch.
Yeah, and then Afridi came and smashed them across the ground, so that was also fun to watch.
Yeah, and then also the 109 against South Africa, 10 sixes he scored. I literally get goosebumps every time that I think about that match. We watched that game together. My hands were getting cold. My feet were getting cold.
Yeah,
Even when I watched the highlights of that innings to this day, goosebumps.
that's wild. I think Shoaib Akhtar had like the best seat for that game. He was literally on the running end. He was just watching this guy go ham. And so Shoaib Akhtar played one ball.
Yeah.
Very important, like dot ball.
He blocked it, and then he was just for fun. He wanted to go for a single, and then Razzaq's like, "None, stay back." So Razzaq, one of the greatest all-rounders, finished his career with 343 international matches, 7,419 runs at a batting average of 28. Alongside that, he had 389 wickets at an average of 32. So 28 batting average, 32 bowling average. I think those are incredibly respectable totals.
Very comparable. Yeah.
Like he could fit in any team as a bowler or as a batsman. And I would even say maybe he retired a bit too early because the kind of a player he was, he would have been very sought after in the T20 league. Somebody who can bat, who can bowl, who can pinch hit at a high strike rate, hit sixes that well.
Watching him in the PSL would have been nice. That would have been a fun experience. Just him going at these bowlers. I think he was a specialist T20 player, just a little bit behind his time.
Ahead of his time.
Sorry, a little bit ahead of his time, my bad. And if he debuted in the late 2000s, I think he would have been one of the greatest of all time.
Yep. And so Razzaq
He would have
retired.
had a lot more T20 trophies for sure.
Razzaq played his last ODI game in 2011, last T20 game in 2013. And then so it's been 10 years and we're still looking for somebody to replace him. The first player that sort of came up as where there was a lot of hype around him, we heard of Hamad Azam's name. I first heard of him from his under-19 campaign. People were talking about this guy's the next Razzaq. He can ball 130. He can hit the ball hard like Razzaq. But he didn't show promise at the international scene. He debuted in 2011. He played 11 ODIs, 5 T20Is. He took a total of 2 wickets at an average of 84.
That's wild.
Scored 114 runs at an average of 14, and not even any like glimpses of promise in his international career. And he got I think a decent run when you're playing at least 16 international matches and you're getting an opportunity to play and contribute with the bat and ball in each game. And we saw Hamad last played for Pakistan in May of 2015. He has since then left the Pakistan cricket scene and he is now moved to the US, where he has just recently been picked up by a major league cricket team. So that's where he sees his future in cricket.
That Major League Cricket League you're talking about, that's going to be fun as well, just because watching cricket in North America is going to be a great vibe. That being said, I think Hamad Azam was definitely a bust. I don't know if the international pressure got to him. I don't know what was going on there. Maybe there was a lot of expectations. Maybe we should have just chilled a little bit. I do remember that this is funny. I do remember that I thought Hamad Azam was Babar Azam's like brother. So I never liked Babar Azam in the beginning because I was like, Hamad Azam was a bust. Babar Azam was gonna be a bust as well. Like, what is going on?
So what happened when you found out that he's actually a cousin of the Akmals?
It got worse. My expectations went plummeted. But thank God for Babar Azam. No, I always pray for him.
Actually, I think you were watching Babar Azam's ODI debut innings and you were like, who's this other Azam guy? I'm like, that's Hamad Azam. And that was his last match that just quoted.
Yeah.
So Babar Azam and Hamad Azam were batting together.
I remember that because I just saw Babar Azam's debut game on YouTube today.
Against Zimbabwe, he scored a 50.
He scored a 50 and he batted so differently. Like his stance was a bit different. He was a bit more slouchy, a little bit more
underweight,
uncharacteristic of him to just he didn't feel like he had become Babar Azam yet. And then you see like the next series and this guy's like scoring three centuries in a row. And
300 in a row against West Indies, 100 in Australia.
And then he was off from there. Yeah. But yeah, Hamad Azam was definitely one of those busts that there's a few other names on that list where I was like, I totally forgot this guy existed.
Yeah, I'm telling you, these names that I'm about to bring up, nostalgia, memories, maybe trauma even.
More trauma for me because that era from 2015 to 19, 15 to 19, I would say, was one of the worst eras of Pakistan cricket for me. I would say the 17 thing it started picking up after the Champions Trophy win. It started picking up a lot, but there was a moment where Azhar Ali was captain and we were getting smacked for like 400 runs in an ODI, like on average.
Getting whitewashed in Bangladesh.
It was a dark period. I want to forget it, but that 2015 to 17-18 run was just crazy, man.
The next player we saw after Hamad Azam come into the pipeline of Pakistan players was Bilal Bhatti.
Oh, I remember him from the T20
not
World
Bilal
Cup.
Bhutto, not the politician.
Yes.
Even though I remember they did do one ad campaign for Sindh Culture Day, and the slogan was Bilawal hota hai, Bhatti ho jaye Bhutto.
Oh my god.
So I don't know why that just came to me.
Wow. I mean, for sure. I agree with that.
And I think it was at that moment where his downfall in cricket began.
Yep.
But he debuted alongside Anwar Ali, who we're going to talk about the next all-rounder. But he scored 39 off 25 against South Africa when we were playing an ODI series against South Africa in South Africa. We won that series 2-1. And it was the first all-rounder that we saw since Razzaq who could ball 140s. His pace was good. He was a short guy. You would never look at him and be like, okay, this guy can ball 145 easily. But again, he showed promise. He was the first all-rounder that we gave a test cap since Razzaq's retirement. But again, he went on to play 2 tests, 10 ODIs, 9 T20Is, taking a total of 17 wickets at an average of 57.
Do you remember where his career downfall happened?
I think so. For him, I feel like he wasn't able to take pressure that well. It was the game against Australia in the T20 World Cup.
Yes, sir.
And
he got smacked for 20 or 25.
Yeah, he gave 36 runs in 2 overs in that match. I have that stat here because I just recalled that thing of Bilal Bhatti.
That's where it's ended for him. I think Afridi was captain in that series, or 2012 World Cup, I believe. Afridi was captain, and this guy.
2014. It was Hafiz who was captain.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Hafiz. It was the weird kit with the flag on the shoulder.
Yeah.
That was just a weird vibe. I was like, okay, I guess we're doing that. And yeah, that again, crazy World Cup for him.
Yep. And then so he also had 182 runs at an average of 18. So nothing to show for from the bat or the ball. Or one good performance on his debut, but I can't really think of anything else.
Yeah.
And he last played his last international game in May of 2015. And then we come towards Anwar Ali, the under-19 prodigy. We all grew up with the myth of Anwar Ali and that spell he bowled against India in the under-19 World Cup final in 2006. He took 5 wickets for 35 runs, taking the wickets of Pujara, Rohit Sharma, Ravi Jadeja, and 2 other players. He also scored 17 runs in a low-scoring match where I think that the whole team scored 109.
That's a crazy game, by the way. If Sarfraz was captain.
Sarfraz was captain. Nasir Jamshed was playing that game. Imad Wasim was playing that game.
This was before Babar Azam, right?
This is way before Babar Azam. I think this is a bit like a couple of World Cups, under-19 World Cups before Babar Azam even came on scene. But again, just that team was incredible. To win that game, I mean, you put Janoon's music in the background.
I remember that video.
With that Anwar Ali spell, and you're like, bro, what the hell was that spell?
That's incredible.
And what's shocking to me is like it took Anwar Ali 7 years to make his place in the international team. Like it took 7 years from that performance to his debut. And when he came on the scene, we noticed that he lost his in-swing. He changed his bowling action.
The one thing that made him like successful in that World Cup was his in-swing. I remember like his ball, he would drop the ball on like the 5th, 6th stump and it would just swing in and hit the leg stump.
Yeah,
that's how much it was like moving in the air.
I think Rohit Sharma got out leaving the ball. Like he left the ball and it knocked off his off peg.
Yeah.
In the 19 World Cup final. So that's how exaggerated his swing was. But what I heard was that he got a lot of back injuries because of how his action was. Technically speaking, because of how he released the ball, he had lateral flexion in his lower back, which can oftentimes lead to a lot of lower back injuries. That's exactly what we're seeing happening with Jasprit Bumrah right now. He has the way his release is, he has flexion in his lower back, which causes lower back injuries to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but I don't think Anwar Ali was a bust, though. I think he had some...
His debut match, he was man of the match. He scored 43 off 55 balls and took 2 wickets. And then, so aside from that match, he also played that crazy innings against Sri Lanka.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
46 off 17 balls, and he helped Pakistan chase 172 when they were at 1 point 40 for 5.
This was a home game, right?
We were touring to Sri Lanka.
Oh, we were touring in Sri Lanka, yeah.
And then Also, Afridi played a blinder that innings, and then Imad Wasim finished that match off. And Anwar Ali just smacked the living daylight out of Malinga, who
Yeah.
was, maybe at his peak at the time.
Yeah.
Desara Pereira, a lot of the good bowlers from Sri Lanka. But again, there was that one game against South Africa, that game against Sri Lanka, but nothing consistent. Even though he played a lot more games, and most of his games were played against under the captaincy of Sarfaraz. Sarfaraz and Anwar Ali, they go way back from the under 19 times. They play for the same club in Karachi. They're from Karachi.
I didn't know. I didn't know Anwar Ali was from Karachi.
Again, one of those Yunus Khan type things where he's Pathan from
I get it. Yeah.
KP, but
He
lives
like
in Karachi.
He's from
Basically-
Karachi, but
basically
he's
like
from,
Freely. And I think Sarfaraz showed a lot of trust in Anwar Ali, but again, finished his career with 18 wickets in 22 matches at an average of 52 in ODIs, 320 runs at an average of 29 in ODIs, 10 wickets at an average of 36 and an economy of 8.3 in T20s.
quite high.
His batting stats in T20s weren't that bad. He scored 109 runs at an average of 16 with a strike rate of 141.
Okay. Yeah. So he's going all
But
in.
again, like out of those 109 runs, the 46 off 17 was like half of those ones.
Yeah, and the 35 on debut.
Yeah, so what happened? What happened? And he last played his last game for Pakistan in 2016, March of 2016. But he's still active. He's still playing in the PSL.
I was just gonna say I saw him at the PSL this year, and I was like, oh wow, look at Anwar Ali, good for him taking that back home.
Yeah, but he played for Multan Sultans, and he was playing in the final.
He was playing the
He
final.
played a few match-winning innings actually.
in the PSLs.
In the PSL. I think the problem with Anwar Ali was like he never really improved his batting game. If I'm a bowler, I know exactly where he wants to hit. He's going to go deep in the crease. He wants to hit you long on, deep mid wicket, leg side. So if you bowled him like a slower ball and on outside off stump, he would probably miss it. A bouncer, not sure how he would tackle that. So in international cricket, if you're not improving your game by game, there's video analysts. They're statisticians. They know exactly where to ball to you, what your weaknesses are. So if you don't work to improve them, you'll get exposed very, very quickly.
It's very tough to hide your weaknesses in international cricket. It's so competitive, and you gotta grow with the game and evolve with the game. Otherwise, you get left behind. And Anwar Ali was one of those cases. I actually feel really bad about the whole Anwar Ali situation sometimes because I'm like watching that 2006 World Cup final. And then seeing him like really shine, I feel like if he came in the team the next 3 years, like in 2009 or even after, it would have been a different ball game altogether. Again, I think.
Got a cool wiki bye.
I mean, generally, I think he could have. There's potential like if he was groomed under Afridi and Abdul Razzaq. There's definitely a scenario where he could have been. I'm not saying one of the all-time greats, but better than the stats that you just told me.
Yeah. And then again, just after Anwar Ali's debut, we saw Amir Yamin come into space.
Oh my god, this is the one where I was like, wait, Amir Yamin? That's a very vintage name.
I'm a low-key fan of Amir Yamin.
Just keep that low key, bro.
But I was he scored 62 off 68 balls in his second ODI match against Zimbabwe. Pakistan were chasing 277, and they were 76 for 6, where he had a good partnership with Shoaib Malik. What's shocking to me is that he was up there in competition with Fahim Ashraf and Anwar Ali during his whole career, still is, but he's only played 6 matches in his whole career, 2 ODIs, 4 T20Is. He took a wicket of his first ball ever in T20 cricket. He got Jason Roy in swing LBW at Sharjah, which was a record at that time, and that was just leveled by Ehsanullah in the last series against Afghanistan, also at Sharjah, taking a wicket off his first ever ball in international and T20 cricket. So, I mean, because he's played only 6 matches, I don't think that's a big sample size to judge his performances from. But if you go back to domestic, he averages 35 in first class, 4 centuries, and a bowling average of 27.
It's really good.
He's a proper batsman and a proper bowler. But one area which I think he's lacking, and the reason why he's not being able to get a chance in the team is because as a bowler, he typically bowls the first 2 overs in the power play, and he either balls in the death or in the middle overs. But when you have bowlers like Shaheen and Naseem Shah, you can be giving the new ball to Amir Yamin. Doesn't matter how good his in-swing is.
So then he doesn't have like the death bowling that you need.
Exactly. And
that like, I mean, we kind of already got that covered as well with Haris Rauf.
Exactly.
So where does he bowl?
So how does he come in, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not, again, developing your game.
Again, he would be a good 6th option, but you need to be a batter first. You need a batting heavy all-rounder. Because there's certain games where Ben Stokes doesn't even bowl.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think so. Amir Amin last played for Pakistan in 2018, and we almost saw like there was something going on there. The last game he played, he was in the same 11 as Fahim Ashraf and Imad and Shadab. So it almost felt like Pakistan is going back to the late 90s where we're having multiple all-rounders playing. But that just didn't continue. And then Amir Amin has never gotten his place back into the team. We have since then saw Fahim Ashraf made his debut, which I think has been the mainstay of any potential all-rounders that we've groomed, that we've had in the past. The first one that I ever heard of Fahim Ashraf was 2017 Champions Trophy. It was the warm-up match against Bangladesh where he scored 60. He scored 64 off 30 balls, and Pakistan chased like 300 something against Bangladesh. Later on, I find out that the reason why he scored so many runs and won the game for Pakistan was because the pitch was skewed on one side of the ground, and like the leg side boundary was like 45 meters.
Oh my god!
So
like his top edges were going for 6,
basically, and so we eventually went on to win that game, but that sort of again created a myth of who Fahim Ashraf is as a batsman. I didn't really see much of him before that, and then he went on to debut against Sri Lanka, took a wicket, 1 wicket against them, but. The problem with Fahim Ashraf, I feel like, is he's a good bowling all-rounder, but his batting stats don't back up anything.
Exactly. His batting stats are just there's so many clutch games that he could have won that he just didn't show up. And his bowling is good, and he even opened the bowling a few times for Pakistan. But just at this point, is like you need someone who's batting heavy and who can also bowl. So that's one of the things that we need: a pinch hitter that can come down at 7 and 8, and like really, cameo innings that Razzaq was really famous for. You come in, you play a couple of overs, you score like 20, 25 off of them, and then that's what we need. Fahim Ashraf never really did that. I'm not a big Fahim Ashraf fan, if I'm being honest. I think he's a little bit overrated. There's more myth than man in his stories. I also think that there's probably other better all-rounders that we could groom. We can talk about that as well, because I think after what Shaheen did in the PSL final, that's the way that we should go.
Maybe Shaheen is looking at himself as the next Wasim Akram.
I think he is. There's no doubt about that. He's a left-handed bowler. He's a left-handed batsman. He has promoted himself a couple of times in the PSLs, sometimes with success, sometimes not. And he's a power hitter. And there's this really viral video of Afridi training Shaheen Afridi at the Moin Khan Cricket Academy, where he's just giving him dollies and like telling him how to use his body weight to like get the ball across. And I feel like with Afridi up there, trying to teach him to become that all-rounder, and we have a few sample sizes now, I would not be surprised if Shaheen comes in and like scores a quick 20, 30, even 50 off like 20 balls, 25 balls in the next coming games that we're going to see.
Yeah, so I mean, if you can't find an owner, you can sort of develop one.
Yeah.
We saw Naseem Shah hit 2 6s against Afghanistan in the Asia Cup to win us the match.
Hassan Ali
is someone who's always worked on his batting.
Even Omar Gul. You remember Omar Gul would hit
Omar Gul, bro, Guldozer.
Mid-wicket.
Guldozer.
His mid-wicket shots were my favorite.
That innings he played in 2012 against South Africa at the World T20, smacking Dale Steyn, smacking Morny Morkel, and Albie Morkel and Jack Callis.
That's crazy.
Absolutely crazy knock.
But like, I mean, again, Omar Gul never really like, that was just a fluke, one of those cameos that you don't really rely on. But if you have one, it helps the cause. But I feel like Shaheen Afridi is really like honing the skill. Like he really wants to become a good number 7, good number 8, like, or maybe number 6 if need be. And he wants to be there to sort of elevate the innings and sort of become an asset for the team. If he's not really doing well with the bowling, he just wants to show up for the bat.
Yeah, because if you look at test matches, right? So if like Pakistan typically is like 234-6, and then they're like 280 all out.
Yeah.
But if you have a good tail who knows how to, pick up the bat, score some runs, that 230 for 6 could be 300 all out, 320 all out.
Yeah.
And that extra 20, 30 runs could make a difference in a low scoring match. So, I mean, speaking of test cricket, we did give Fahim Ashraf an extended run for the first time, a consistent extended run back in 2021 and 2022. He played 11 test matches during that period, and I felt like his performances were pretty decent. I mean, he has 24 wickets at an average of 35. he has 673 runs at an average of 28, 450s, which I think are decent. But again, over the last few months, we've seen him sort of vanish from the scene of Test cricket. I felt like when he was in our Test team, he sort of added a lot of balance. He could be like the fifth pacer,
Yeah.
a fourth pacer sometimes, and somebody who can hold the bat pretty decently.
Especially in like foreign conditions in Australia, England, New Zealand, where the pitch is a bit more bouncy. I think that did add value. But yeah, I mean, him in the Test side is fine, but I don't think his stats really translate over to ODIs and T20s. I think he should be kept far away from that. I think if Shaheen Afridi does develop his bat like a proper bat, I think that's the route to go.
I mean, so Fahim was part of the latest team in Afghanistan that played
He
because
didn't
of
play a
his,
game though.
he played one game.
Which one?
I think it was the first one.
Oh,
So
out of my memory.
So it was because of his PSL performances, which helped make a case for himself to get back in the national team. And then I saw the team against New Zealand, and he's also in the T20 squad for that as well. So I think Babar wants to persist with Fahim. He's been part of Pakistan's long-term plans for the past few years, and he wants to, I guess, continue with Fahim. He's just 29 years old. He might only get better from here on.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
But the good thing with Fahim is that he doesn't have much competition right now, right? People keep saying that Wasim Jr. is an all-rounder.
Allegedly.
I am yet to see
The all-round
any
performance.
batting performances to convince me otherwise.
It was shocking to see that on his title card. I was like, wait, what? All rounder? Maybe
Yeah.
he just put that in.
I mean, I know he's young. He's just 21 years old. But looking back, I think if call him a bowler. Don't call him an all-rounder, because looking back at the World T20 that happened in Australia, I think one of the reasons why we lost the game against Zimbabwe was because this guy played so many dot balls, put pressure on the other batsman, and then he just choked. So it was a game of pressure. At the same time, if you consider yourself as a batsman, go out there and score some runs. At least don't play dot balls. Rotate the strike.
Dot balls are criminal in T20s, bro. And him doing that, I remember that it was that doesn't really help his case much.
Yeah. So I mean, Wasim Jr. averages 12, high score of 43. I need to see some more batting
The sample size needs
opportunities.
to be bigger.
Yeah. And then the most latest case that we've seen for an all-rounder that came in was Amir Jamal.
I like him.
Looking back at the game against England before the World Cup, where he defended 15 off the last over against Moeen Ali, I think that showed a lot of character. But again, with him, we need to see some more batting stats. The one thing for Amir Jamal for me that was promising, it's two things actually. Last PSL, I saw him clock in upwards of 145 clicks. He balls fast. He has rapid pace. At the same time, his T20 batting stats, so he averages 22 with a strike rate of 167. So he has insane power hitting abilities, but again, need to see more opportunities given to him. He was part of the England series before the World Cup, but again, he's just disappeared. I think we should have continued with him and maybe groom Fahim and Amr at the same time. But the way forward here, where do we go? I think we need to really groom these people. Groom Amr Jamal, groom Fahim Ashraf. At the same time, improve Shaheen's batting abilities, improve Naseem's batting abilities, improve Wasim Jr.'s batting abilities.
They need more time in the nets. That's it.
And you have Mohammad Yusuf in your team as a batting consultant. So, and Fahim Ashraf credits a lot of his batting improvement to Mohammad Yusuf.
Yeah.
So when you have assets like that, when you have Babar Azam and Rizwan in your team who are great batsmen in their own liking, pick their brains, use that skill that they have to transfer into your own batting abilities. Because oftentimes you look back and you see teams that are good and great. What differentiates them is how, in Test cricket at least, is how strongly their tail fights.
Yeah.
So if the tail is like adding a lot of runs, having small partnerships towards the end, that makes a difference between trailing in Test cricket, leading a game, how much you're willing to chase that target. So once you have that variety, once you have that balance in your team, we'll see better results for the team overall.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the way moving forward, is just to make sure that the cricketers that we have, like Shaheen Afeed, who's actually taking the initiative on this and trying to be a better batsman. I think we need to see that a little bit more, and definitely use the all-star power that we have on the top, and then the coaching staff as well. I think that's the move.
Because we can't keep having players come up and be like, oh, this guy's the next Razzaq, and then just poof.
How many
Nothing.
next Razzaqs are we gonna get? It's been 10
Right?
years.
So I mean, it's been 10 years. It's time we actually find someone and groom them, invest in them. We're seeing Australia invest so much into Cameron Green. We're seeing Jason Holder emerge as one of the great West Indian all-rounders. So it's high time that we also settle in, identify a few players, invest into their future.
Yeah,
And that in turn is going to help Pakistan cricket propel and move forward.
100%. I agree with you 100%.
So I think that could be a good way to end in this episode. Let us know how you thought of this legacy episode in the comment section below. If you think there's maybe better all-rounders, just have a discussion.
Let's talk about it. There's a lot of bashy stands out there now, like people who are fans of your work, and
I'm getting less death threats now.
less death threats, more people protecting your name and your honor out there. So whoever you guys are, if you guys want to speak more, definitely our DMs are open. Our comment sections are always open. Thank you guys for 1,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram. Really appreciate that. Let's get those numbers translated over to YouTube so we can start monetizing. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. And like, if you guys like this episode, definitely let us know, because we have more planned we have more planned in the pipeline, and you'll see more coming through your way.
Thanks again. This is Bashar signing out.
And this is another Sayed signing out. Thank you for watching, and subscribe, like, whatever you do on the interwebs, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.